Welcome to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast with Darren Mitchell. If you're a sales leader looking to take your leadership to a whole new level, then this is the podcast for you. We'll be exploring tips, techniques, and strategies to help you take your leadership to the exceptional level and allow you to enjoy more money, more meaning, and better sales results. Welcome back to the Exceptional Sales Leader Podcast, and welcome to a man who is sitting in his, it looks like his home office. It's about 8:30 at night in Maryland in the US of A. Mr. Donny Hackett, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Yep, it is Thursday night football, and we're here talking, so I'm excited.
And you were saying you've already done some work. You put the kids to bed. You've been working, and after this podcast, you're going to continue to work. And I said to you, mate, this is the life of a founder and a CEO.
That is right. Yep. So I worked my day job, as I refer to it these days. Put in the 8 hours, 8.5 hours, and then played with the kids, put them to bed, worked a little bit, doing this podcast, going to work about 2 to 3, maybe 4 hours tonight, and then repeat tomorrow.
Well, I was going to ask you, is there any quality time for the one who must be obeyed in terms of your partner, your wife?
So tomorrow is actually our anniversary. So
Nice. Congratulations.
yeah, thank you. It's
You better remember,
8 years, 9 years, one of those.
nine
We've been
years.
together. We've been together for 13 years. I believe we've been married for 8 or 9 years. I'll figure that
Nice.
out after this podcast. But we're
Sensational.
doing a date night tomorrow night, so that'll be good.
Well, congratulations. And you mentioned before you've got three children. So being together 13 years, 9 years, and living with an entrepreneur and a full-time sales executive can't be easy, but good on her for doing that. Because my wife
Yeah.
stuck around for 30. I sometimes wonder.
I'm yeah, I have no idea how she puts up with me sometimes, but it's
So,
great.
Donny, the reason we're talking today is you're the founder and CEO of VeriDeal. And we'll talk about that and what it actually means and how it's going to help salespeople stand out in the marketplace and I guess be more marketable and also help hiring managers and organizations cut through a lot of the, let's just say, the bollocks that's out there in terms of some of the stretching of the truth when it comes to resumes. And we'll get into the genesis of that and how it's going to add value. But as I always love to do with guests is learn a little bit about the background and specifically what has led you to now put together such a what will be a big platform and hopefully a very successful platform. So where did it all start for
Yeah.
you, Donny?
Yeah, of course. So, brief background. I grew up in Austin, Texas. And then, shortly after high school, I knew I wanted to go into the military. So I did about 4.5 years in the Coast Guard. When I was in the Coast Guard, that's where I met my wife. I was in DC, then North Carolina, and Annapolis. After I got out of the military, I started bar backing. Like most people getting out of the military, you don't really know what you're going to do. And so I got kind of pushed into wine, and then I quickly realized I'm more of a salesperson. So I spent the following about 5 or 5.5 years in wine sales,
Yep.
moving up through the ranks. And then COVID happened. I moved over to, I would say, the technology world. So I started
Yep.
in technology and still in sales. And I worked at the first company, and then the second company was AWS. And so when I went to AWS, it was fantastic. I was really excited. And 100 days later, I was part of 27,000 people that got laid off.
Wow.
Um, Screen went black in the middle of a phone call with a client. And I called my buddy who was at the office at that day, and they're like, "Yeah, our entire floor is cut." I was like, "Okay, well, that's okay. Sounds good." So
Wow. Just went black.
just black,
No,
and just like we were talking right now, it went black.
no notification, just pull the plug.
Yep, that was it.
Jeez.
Pretty wild. So after that, they gave us about, I think it was it was fairly generous. It was about 2 or 3 months of, pay to kind of like transition, right? So, as any normal person, you start blasting out resumes, seeing what jobs are open, first of all, and then blasting out resumes. And in this moment, it was about my fourth interview at four different companies. I made it to the second or third round, and then I realized, wait a second, I'm not getting these jobs. Okay, fair. But there's something else that's at play. Salesforce laid off 10,000 people, Microsoft, Oracle, all these companies laid off thousands, tens of thousands of people, not just sales reps, but everyone.
Mm, mm,
And I realized I'm competing with thousands of people for one job. That's when it hit me. And I was like, okay, how do I stand out? So that's where VeriDeal started,
hmm
is how can you showcase your performance, your past performance into the future. And so it cuts through the resume BS, it cuts through the algorithms, it goes directly to this is what I've done, this is the trajectory I'm on, and this is what I will be capable of doing in the future.
mm. Wow.
So, yep,
So we'll talk about the elements of VeriDeal and how it came a bit about and so forth. I want to go back because you mentioned you were bar backing and you love wine. I noticed on the bookshelf behind you, you got a couple of wine books there. So
sure
are you
do.
now are you a self-educated sommelier or you did some
I
training
am
around that?
actually there's a plaque right here, and that's
Yep.
my sommelier. Um, so I have that, and then pretty much all those books on that shelf
Yep.
are different wine. And then that book, my good friend wrote Big Macs in Burgundy, Vanessa Prince. Yeah, it's a
Big
great book. It's
Macs and
basically
Burgundy.
you pick a wine or you pick a fast food or like a fun food and you pair it. So it's pretty cool.
Love it. Love it.
Yep.
Um, I mean, my background is I've got a bit of I'm not a sommelier, but I spent probably, let me just think about this. I reckon about 8 to 10 years working in a fine wine merchant as a
Okay.
young person, talking to winemakers, and I learned a lot about wine. And I learned a lot about
Hmm.
the language around wine, but I also learned a lot of skill sets around selling and influence and so forth. Because the other thing I wanted to ask you was you mentioned that you were bar backing, but you had um, more of a either interest or a skill set in sales, and you recognize that. So what was it in that? Was it the fact that other people were gravitating towards you, or you're able to influence through the language? What was it that gave you the inclination to now pursue a career in sales, particularly coming out of the military?
Sure. So, I'll give you a little bit more detailed of the background. So, bar backing, and I knew I wanted to do something besides bar backing. So, I went to the wine shop that was attached to the restaurant, and I noticed two gentlemen that were sommeliers and helping people sell or buy wine. I started asking them, how does this work? And they told me to go take that sommelier test. I studied. 3 weeks later, I took it and I passed. Then they're like, okay, that's pretty great. Now you can work in the wine shop with us. I started learning, and then that's when I started to understand that like different words mean different things to people, and it draws out different emotions, and you can kind of persuade people with your words, which
Mm,
is interesting, right? Um, and then that's when I just decided, okay, I like to be in sales, because the sales side of it, for me, especially back then and still today, is you have a lot of power with how you frame your words. And especially like to different people.
mm.
You cannot say the same thing and get the same emotion from the same person. So I've read a lot of psychology, or sociology, or all those fun fun training books, but it's a that is also kind of a side passion for me. So that's cool.
Psychology and learning about people,
Yep, exactly.
but ethically influencing, I'm sure.
Ethically, of course.
Because I was going to ask you then as well, because you would have been working for some of the organizations. I know you work at Comcast, you've been at AWS, albeit short time, but some of the training or some of the mentoring that you would have received. How has that um, shaped, I guess, your approach to sales? And now as you expand into VeriDeal, and hopefully VeriDeal becomes the full-time gig and it just takes global domination.
Of course.
How's it helped you become, I guess, a a value creating individual within the business, but also, as we'll talk about, separating or differentiating it from competition?
Sure. Early in my career, I didn't have great leaders, if that makes sense, in my sales career. I had to really seek it out through podcasts, books, and psychology,
Mm,
and trial and error, a lot of trial and error, which is can be good. And then when I broke into the Comcast, had a fantastic leader. His name's Scott, and fantastic guy. He really kind of helped shape me, make me think differently, think about the customer, the reactions, and all that stuff. And then going to Amazon, another fantastic environment because you're around a lot of great salespeople,
mm,
great leaders, and they're all accessible. Um, that exposed me to a very wide range of, I guess you can say, leaders that pushed me to think differently, approach situations, and then after being laid off and going through, one or two more companies, and the economics of the world, macroeconomics shifted, right? That's when the sales all the training that I did go through kind of really shined. And I believe that's where, reading a lot of those books early on poked its head up because, um, especially in the past, let's call it 18 months, macroeconomics have been a little bit difficult.
yeah.
So you have to be able to speak to different lines of businesses, especially the CFOs, right?
Mm,
And those are different conversations. You have to be comfortable having very vastly different conversations in one sales cycle.
mm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and often we talk a lot about sales cycles, but not a lot of salespeople consider the customer's buying cycle because the customer may not
exactly.
be in a buying window yet. So it's the nurturing sequence and it's the value creation and the insights we bring to that, which means you need to be educated. You need to understand the background. You need to understand some of the challenges that, for example, that CFO is experiencing. Are they under
Yeah.
cost pressure? Are they being squeezed by their shareholders in terms of maximizing margin, and therefore they've got to make some decisions that probably are not palatable, but may be necessary for the survival and hopefully for further thriving of the business. So you do. It's not easy, right? And this is why I say selling it can be one of the most rewarding and most fulfilling and often the most lucrative professions on the planet, but equally it can be one of the most frustrating and and terrible ones at the same time. But if you can see through that and you can work through it and know what the value is that you create and what differentiates you, then if you play the longer game, you'll eventually come. So you'll eventually come to the end. You'll come through.
One of the great lessons that I've kind of learned over the past few years is all these tips, tricks, they're all great, right? They can be extremely valuable in the right situation. Um, but there's a big but there, and that is sales, buyers. Let's say buyers, they can see right through that. I mean, how many sales reps do they see, right? Um, and it's funny. Most buyers react differently when you are just plain yourself, your
Hmm.
personality, not trying to pitch anything and just being you. And they
Yep.
actually truly enjoy that. And I feel like um, leaderships might not be teaching that properly. Might not be teaching that, like, you have your own unique personality. Go show that because
Yeah.
that's pretty unique.
It's interesting you say that. I was talking to somebody yesterday who's worked with Tony Robbins, and she also works in Russell Brunson's inner circle as a coach within his business. And she's done something like 40,000 coaching hours. It's just extraordinary. And we're talking about that being authentically you. but knowing what
Mhm.
your profile was. And she uses DISC as the I guess the behavior profiling tool to help
Yep.
people assess people. But you're so right. People like to buy from those who they know, they like, they trust, but also who they remember. So the question we've always got to ask ourselves as a salesperson is how can I be memorable? And being
Right.
memorable is not inundating the customer with all the bells and whistles and features of what your product is, because of course you're going to say your product is the best. You're going to be memorable by how you leave something which is an impression of increase for that person having felt better having a conversation with you. And they're not
Yep.
feeling good about you because it's not about you. They're feeling, mate, Donny's just given me some value that I never thought of before. He's actually asked me a question that nobody's asked me before. There must be something about him that needs me to further investigate. Interesting.
Hmm.
That's the
Right.
whole thing. And you can't fake that. The problem I find is, and in all the sales training that I do, is the vast majority of organizations have their salespeople being trained on product and they drink the Kool-Aid of the product. And there's nothing wrong
Yep.
with that other than we're not teaching sales leaders and we're not teaching, therefore, salespeople how to have the genuine human to human business based conversations without talking about the product and the service.
Right. Just that.
Just that.
Yep.
So if
No,
we just did that, it all
it's
change.
no, and I might be on the wrong side of the fence for some people on this one, but I believe that, in today's world, sales reps need to know what they're selling. That's a statement, right? But you also need to understand that, like, if you have a solutions architect or a sales engineer, they're supposed to be the experts in that technology.
Mm,
You're supposed to be the experts in sales. And those are two different things. Those are two different worlds. And if you can just be yourself,
mm.
and what I always like to say, especially in my line of business, is like I like to simplify the complexity of what's happening.
Yeah.
Just dumb it down to the lowest level. That way we can continue that.
And if you have a human-based conversation and if you focus on the problem that your customer has either told you they have, or you believe they have based on doing research, or your customers in an industry that there is a problem or a trend happening that you believe you've got a solution for, then that's what you're going to base your conversation on. It is not about your product. And I'm flabbergasted at the number of salespeople that turn around and say, not only do we have the best product, but our customers want our product. And I say to them, no, they don't. Your customers, whatever product it is, even your products that you sell, right? Your
Right?
customers, they're not waking up. They're not going to wake up tomorrow, Donny, and think, oh, I must give Donny a call because I want to buy all those products and services. They're
Right.
simply not thinking about that. What they're thinking about is how do I solve that problem? I've got somebody riding me like a bucking bull within the organization, and I don't know how to solve this problem. Who do I know within the industry or within my network who might have either a contact, an idea, or even a possible solution that I can investigate?
Right.
That's what they're looking for. So if we understand that, we can start to change the psychology and start to ask better questions and have better based conversations. And that's where you differentiate.
Yep.
Now we got off tangent there, but we just
Yeah.
had to say,
No, it's
had
good.
to say
Yeah.
that. Um, so I'd love to then know. I mean, you mentioned before that okay, the macroeconomics in the world and certainly in the US and no different really in Australia. Although I must
Mhm.
admit, Australia has been somewhat I guess sheltered a little bit. That we were pretty well sheltered to some degree when the GFC hit. We certainly were not sheltered when it came to COVID because I actually live in the city that was the most locked down in the world. That's Melbourne. 221 days I think it was that were locked down. Um, you mentioned before that there's lots and lots of companies, big companies that are laying off, right? Which again I
Yep.
find staggering because you'd think that business, the lifeblood of any business is sales. So let's just keep investing in sales. But maybe I'm
Right.
just looking through rose-colored glasses.
Right.
Um, I'd love to know, can you talk about the genesis of the idea of where VeriDeal came from? Was it something you were just sitting there one day when Amazon turned off your your screen went black? Was it
Yep.
was it walking down the street? Was it having a coffee with your wife? Was it just sitting watching NFL football? Was there something? Was there a spark of inspiration that hit you that said, "There's got to be a better way"? What was it? Or was it something
Yeah.
less inspirational?
No, it's kind of inspirational, I think, is I was listening to a podcast. I forgot exactly who was the host, but Jocko Willink,
Yep.
I'm sure you're
Yep.
so Jocko was the guest. And they were having conversations and he just kept coming back to the same point, like probably over like 10 minutes. You just need to take a step back, look around, assess, and make a plan. And I was probably really caught up in myself not getting the job. Like I'm 1 month left or something like that, and of until the benefits run out, and I have kids, and I need benefits, right? Because I have like young kid, and
Yep.
anyways, and so I think by the fifth time that Jocko said that exact phrase, I heard it and I processed it, and then I took a step back of everything, and I truly did realize the job market right now is very difficult for tech sales, and especially in like certain geographic areas. And I need to figure out how to stand above.
Hmm.
So the idea was like, what if I sent resumes that had proof, like verified proof? And I was like, I have no idea how that's going to work, but that would be really cool. Like, or send recruiters that. Anyways, that's where the original thought came from.
Yep.
And then working through it for I think, 18 months in my mind, I was like, okay, this is how I want to build it. And February this year, my wife gave birth to our third child. And 2 weeks after that, no sleep. You're sleep deprived. You're up changing diapers all night, and dealing with two kids. And I looked at my wife. I think it was like at 2 a.m. or 4 a.m. or something like that. And I said, I'm going to build this company. And she was like, "Oh, okay. Can we talk about this in the morning?" So in the morning over coffee, I told her, I laid out exactly the game plan. Few tweaks here and there, but the total game plan is I'm going to help people that actually produce, that actually work, show employers and have employers want them.
Mm.
And it's not gonna be on LinkedIn, it's not gonna be on their resume. It's gonna be something different and something unique that actually shows what they've done. So that's a genesis of VeriDeal.
Wow. And so when you look at that, um, has anything, and obviously you would have done some research to think, okay, is there anything out there that might be similar? So what do we, or do we just revert back to you write your resume, you talk about what your history is and all the deals you've done, and probably embellish it a little bit or a lot, depending on who you are.
Of course, right?
Um, but also then thinking about, okay, who's the target market? So you mentioned before you wanted to help, say, salespeople separate themselves and differentiate themselves. And it would have been a lot, I guess, from your experience going through a tough job market at the time and thinking, how do I stand out? How do I, and I love the idea that how do I give proof, right? Because
Yep.
when you, and this is my take on all this. Yes, organizations will have um, processes. They'll do cognitive testing. They'll do assessments in profiles. They'll say, do we have the right characteristics that's going to be a match for our values and et cetera, et cetera. And then they'll have things like, well, hey, Donny, do you have a referee that I can call? Now, I find that staggering because I don't know anybody that has a referee that is going to say anything other than Donny was and is the most extraordinary human on the planet. And not only should you be hiring him for this particular position, you probably should be hiring him for the head of sales role because he's just that good, right?
Yep.
So that's a roundabout way of asking the question, how did you identify your ideal customer target? Was it purely going to be starting with the account executive, for example, or
Mhm.
was part of it also thinking, how do I make the hiring manager's job easier? How do I make it easier for recruitment firms to decipher and distinguish between all these resumes that get thrown in, particularly in the
Yep.
world of AI, where you can make a really ordinary career look like you are the best person that's ever lived?
Correct. So, to start, I'm in sales. I know people in sales, and I know salespeople are very good at embellishing. They're we're the best, right? We really are. We can talk about ourselves all day long. Some people. Um, so that was a clear target for myself to start with salespeople because you can take a resume and you can take your actual resume, put it into ChatGPT or one of the AI programs, upload the job description and say, match that so I get that job first interview.
Yeah.
Easy, right? And if you're not doing that, there you go. Don't do that. And so so that was the genesis of it. But then as time progressed and we're still, working on this, but we're planning to do all lines of businesses, all
Yeah.
job markets,
Okay.
because there are good people working very hard, completing projects, whether you're project manager or marketing or anywhere, right? And even in finance, and your recognition is still not being true. And on top of that, maybe you work at that company for 5, 7, 10 years, and then you get fired or laid off,
Yeah.
and you haven't built a resume in 10 years.
Yeah.
You haven't shown your progress, right? So, um, proving over years of decades of hard work and results will help people stand out in the future.
And so the actual process itself, because you talk about it's in a salesperson's perspective, it's the first platform where sales representatives, sales professionals can literally have their customers
Mhm.
verify what they're putting on their resume. So,
Yep.
for example, I know there are people who have worked for me who
Mhm.
have taken credit, and God bless their cotton socks, for deals that I actually closed, right?
No.
But that's okay. So
Yep.
how does that actually work? Do you need to get the
Sure.
buy-in of the customers? Is it like a referee sort of check? Is it how just talk to me about because you just mentioned that it's going to be for pretty much all employees in all sort of
Right.
facets, all sort of roles, which I think is phenomenal. Um,
Yep.
but how does it just walk me through the from a selling perspective, for example, some of the I guess the practical steps that a person when they jump onto the platform, what are they going to
Right.
see and what is it going to help them do that might differentiate them from their competition?
Sure. Yep. So, um, first, as a good, true, honest salesperson, right? You work a deal, and let's say even if it's a short, under 30 days or a long, year deal,
Yeah.
hopefully, by the end of the deal, by the signature and agreement, you've made a champion of that person. It's not, and I understand there's transactional deals that
Yeah.
happens, right? But let's go with the champion, right? The champion mindset. And for this role play, you're my buyer, right?
Mhm.
We spent 3 9 months together working on this deal or solution for you. And at the end of the deal, I log in, paperwork is signed, and everything's happy. Ver I log in as a sales rep to VeriDeal, and I log the deal. Now, we have been working on privacy and security, so those things are very locked down and taken
Yeah.
care of. My business partner and CTO, worked for the government, and all the letters that you need to have security. He's good with that. So we're confident with that. But I log the deal, and I tell you exactly, what of the 5 categories. We're starting with 5 categories in technology sales, hardware,
Yeah.
software. Um, and then a little bit description about the deal. You can be as descript or not descript, and
Yeah.
then deal size. And it doesn't have to be exact dollar amount
Hmm.
for security reasons. I totally understand that.
Yeah.
And then I will send the email or hit the submit button, and it will be sent to you. Now, on your side, you get to rate me. You have there's drop down questions, how was it, a rating system and comments. And the reason why is because we want to understand, you know, for you, the sales rep, um, how can you be better? What did I miss or what did I do really great?
Yeah.
So then on your profile in VeriDeal, you have a verified deal. So hiring managers, recruiters, future employers, they can see that you have X deal verified by this customer.
Yeah.
Um, and then one add-on, I apologize for forgetting on the deal page before I submit it, I can also, as a sales rep, tag a sales trainer.
Yeah.
So if you were, my sales trainer, I could tag you as a part of this deal, so that way you get credit for helping train me to close this deal. Does that make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah, it does.
Perfect.
Yeah, it does.
Yep.
And as you're talking there, I'm thinking to myself, is this, and might be more of a specific logistical question, but is this going to be aimed at sales reps where they have an individual like subscription, or are you planning on putting this into companies where they can help their sales reps have verification of deal and almost have like I don't know, a testimonial platform that they can then draw out of. Obviously, if you get permission from your customers to do that.
Right.
What's the sort of the thought process around that? Is it the individual subscriber or is it more of a company subscriber where the salespeople can do this?
Sure. So we are launching with a two-tier subscription model,
Yeah,
and we are going to expand to that enterprise business to business model soon,
yeah,
actually fairly quick. But the first one will be a free platform subscription,
yeah,
and then a paid version. So the paid version will you can verify as many deals as you want. There's going to be some fun gamification process as well. If you're in SaaS, you can judge against other people in SaaS. If you're SMB or mid market or enterprise, right? In SaaS, you can see if you're the top dog in
yeah,
SaaS in
yeah,
enterprise globally. So we have some fun tricks in there. But so to answer your question very directly, free and paid. The paid
yeah.
will have a lot more features, and then in the very near future, we will have the enterprise. That way, and to kind of expand on that, a company buys the licenses, right? I mean, makes sense. And then they can showcase their sales reps. And the reason why is because the buyer is looking in. And here's the crux. Sure, the buyer will rate people, but now the buyer wants to understand, if I'm buying cybersecurity, maybe an MDR solution, who should I go with? Sure, you
Mm,
can Google. Sure, you can call a friend that maybe just had a good experience, or you can go into VeriDeal. Okay, this is what I'm looking for. This is the solution I'm looking for. Here are the reps and the companies. Here are the reps that have like a 9 out of 10 or 5 out of 5 stars. Great comments. And these are the people that I want to work with.
love it. Now, with that, that's where the security part and I guess the confidentiality becomes really important because how open is that to people? Does a buyer need to then have just a free subscription, or do they have to have a paid subscription to be able to see that? And do they get to see everything, or is it limited to the areas that they're interested in, for example?
Great question. So we are going to start as limited as possible, but as functional as possible, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Because you don't want to open up everything to everyone. But yes, it will be a subscription for the buyer as well. Um, Lower cost to entry because we're providing a service for them.
yeah.
Um, but yeah, limited and then slowly expand.
So I'm assuming then, I mean, in an ideal world, as soon as you close a deal, that's where it's all signed and sealed, delivered, and it may even be before the implementation starts. But you get the deal, you upload it, you get the feedback, so it's there. Now, if you have like a B2B subscription, and you within Light Edge, for example,
Mhm.
you've used it. Light Edge has got a subscription. You then move to, let's just say you go back to AWS or you go to Salesforce. Can you still get access to the deals that you did that can help build your resume in previous organizations? Or is that then, I guess, ring fenced based on the company that's got the subscription?
Correct. So the way that we are positioning the B2B, the enterprise sale motion will be this is for the individual,
Okay.
not you, not your company, because I'm fine with the B2B enterprise solution not working. Because VeriDeal is about the individual
Individual.
and
Yeah.
helping the individual. That's my mission. That's my goal, period. That's it. Now, I would like to think in positivity, right? Optimistic. So if a person is moving to a different company, you know, maybe the company that is losing that sales rep will offer more or offer a bonus to keep that sales rep because they are a good sales rep, right?
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be a lot of changes, but I think this will help the individual at the ground level, and that's what I care about is the employees.
Love it. Love it.
Mm.
Um, and Donny, I'm always big on um, understanding what is the unique value proposition. We said before that it's the first platform that's of its kind that enables us to verify with customers close deals. And there'll be organizations out there that say, "Oh, hang on a second, we do customer satisfaction surveys." Yeah, but that's different, right? You actually get in the customer rate, the level of satisfaction, and a lot of the times it's a gamed um, process because you're trying to get a number, particularly if it's net promoter score, as high as possible. Because anything below an 8, you don't really want to know about, as we just want nines and tens because that means they're raving fans.
Right.
When you think about the research that you did, because you came up with this idea of which is a fantastic idea. What kind of research did you do to help frame your unique value proposition? Because you said before it's really aimed at the individual, which is
Mhm.
fine. But also then think about the sales manager or the hiring manager or the recruiting firm and how that's going to help their job in the
Yep.
future. Did you do some research? Did you gather some intelligence around what they were looking for and how it might help them become more effective and therefore help them get better results?
Exactly. So, if you mind, I have a short little story
Yeah.
for that exact reason. So, a buddy of mine introduced me to his good friend, VP of sales, this hot company, hot AI company, and he's tasked with hiring a lot of people real fast. The VCs want to see this grow, and they have some big names behind them. So he's growing and he's hiring a lot of good people, basically taking the top talent from a lot of different companies. Great. You know you're going to be successful with that. But then he told me about this one story. And this one story was he was looking for the specific, I think it was manager or director. It was a key role.
Yeah.
And he didn't know who to hire. So he reached out to his network, and the network all pointed to this one person. So he trusts his network. So he hired this person. It costs a lot of money to hire this person. So, and time. So it was about 4 months plus hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to get them on board. They get on board 3 months in, zero producer, dead weight. And the reason why, so he called his friend and he asked, like, what did you do? Like, why? And he said, his network said, um, she was out of work for 3 months. So,
She was out of work for 3 months.
so this person made a very large financial mistake and a very painful, daily grind mistake on his daily life because his network pointed to a person. Um, so now how's VeriDeal going to help? That's the case, that's the one case that makes sense, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you know when you hire someone, and sales manager is down, right? ICs. When you
Yep.
hire an IC, you know who you're getting. Sure. And
Mm.
I'm not going to say that they're going to be perfect 100% of the time because life events happen, you lose the grind, what there's life happens, right?
Yeah.
But sales managers will have a better understanding. And for an empty seat today, like the economics is roughly $100,000 of lost potential revenue every single month. And then you
Yeah.
have training on top of that. Imagine if you don't really have to train someone and you can fill that seat within 1 week.
Mm. Yeah.
So does that kind of answer that question?
Yeah, because I'm thinking this poor she was probably a nice person, but she just couldn't produce. Well, and the other part of me, Donnie, thinks, okay, so my network. So if I'm asked who would I recommend, I have certain
Hmm.
criteria because I know what it's like to go through the pain of trying to onboard somebody. They don't work out. You go back to the drawing board and it costs hundreds of thousands. I think the numbers are anything from 150 to 250 Australian dollars, right? Which is
Right.
probably, I don't know, 100 grand to 150 US dollars, whatever the exchange rate is. It's a shitload of
Yep.
money, right?
It's a lot.
And you've only got your reputation. So if somebody's asking me who would I recommend, I'm not going to recommend somebody unless I know that they're a person that I would hire. And if I
Right.
wouldn't hire them, I'm not going to give them to you. So that is an interesting outcome. We identified this person because they hadn't worked for
Right.
3 months. Maybe they hadn't worked for 3 months for a very specific reason. They weren't good.
Right.
Ah,
Right. Right. And yeah, I mean, but these use cases. So I keep talking to VP of sales. I just cold call them, and I talk to VCs as well. That will answer my phone, and I hear these stories a lot. They friends of friends
yeah,
or network,
yeah,
and then just like you said, yeah, your reputation kind of deteriorates in their mind because
yeah,
now you're and maybe they would have done great, or they did do great under you,
mm,
or under that certain manager. But maybe that manager was really hard, or
mm,
took training to the next level,
yeah,
and you're not going to have that time to teach this person, so they're going to falter, right?
yeah,
Um, there's so many different obstacles. That's why I like to come back to the very grounded base of like, what have you done?
yeah,
What can you do?
yeah.
And then prove it.
And I love that. I love that because it's really foundational, right? So you can sit
Yes.
in front of somebody and they can talk about a deal they did, right? Which they might have been part of an account team. They may have
Yep.
led the account team, or they may have just
Mhm.
been somebody walking past who just happened to see, oh, there's something going here. I might get a piece of that action and clip the ticket. Yeah, I was involved in this strategic account. Um,
Right.
it's going to be very difficult to embellish the truth, particularly when you've got
Yep.
customers who are now rating the deal, the people, the experience, implementations, because I'm sure that they could also rate, because you could do it post contract signing, but I'm sure you could also do it an update post implementation to say, well, did the promise of the solution deliver on the promise, and therefore is there a connection, which also points to credibility as well.
Yep.
Mate, I can see the world is the oyster here for this sort of application. So
Yep.
good on you for coming up with it.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Yep.
So what's the big dream, the big vision for this? Apart from obviously global domination and you being as part of the same vernacular as they're talking about Meta and Google and OpenAI. It's now going to be
There you
VeriDeal
go.
as well, right?
Right. Now, so yeah, I mean, like, I'm a champion of the small guy, I guess you can say. I've always been, stood up to, the bullies in high school and even in elementary school.
Yeah.
Um, so I truly believe that if we give people the platform and empower them to prove their worth. Um, the world can change for better, I believe, because I could see in the future companies forming and picking the A players and building the best product, right?
Yeah.
Like product management, marketing, sales. You're picking your exact perfect team, and
Yeah.
then you're just going to skyrocket. Um, I could see some investors doing good rather than nefarious stuff, and 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 doing the same thing, right? Like helping the companies that they invest in, making sure that they have the best teams possible
Mm,
um, to get their products out. So, um, yeah, I pray and I hope and I will work nonstop to make sure that everyone has the ability to have a platform that can showcase who they are and what they can do.
mm.
And that's my goal. That's period.
I think it's a phenomenal idea because unlike a resume, you're going to be dealing with factual information,
Mhm.
albeit there might be a level of subjectivity in it because you as the customer, for example, might have a certain belief about the experience and it may not necessarily correspond with what our experience was this as the seller.
Right.
But what it does give you data. It does give you proof points. It does give you things that you can actually further investigate, have conversations around. And I like the what you mentioned before as a prospective procurer of a service and not knowing really where to go to or being confused with all the messaging out of the marketplace. If I went into VeriDeal and put in search function, I'm looking for somebody who has ethics, who's delivered according to this sort of criteria, and give me the top five. And I said, bang, I'm going to go and have a conversation with those people because it's been proven based on third party endorsement.
Exactly. Yep.
That is powerful.
Yep. No,
That is powerful.
I think it can change the game on sales,
Yeah,
which is gonna be
absolutely.
great.
Absolutely.
Um, it's gonna be fun.
Awesome, mate. So really appreciate you coming on. I've loved this conversation. Can you tell us where can people connect with you first of all, and how can they get information about VeriDeal? How can they get a subscription? And how obviously just
Of
what
course.
how do they find you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. So I am on LinkedIn. I guess that's my primary thing, social media handle. So on LinkedIn, it is actually Don Hackett,
Yeah,
and it's Don Hackett with a zero on the end. Um, so trying to
I'll put it in the show notes. That's all good.
perfect. And then for the platform itself. So we are launching in the very next few weeks. We have some beta people on there right now, trying to break it, trying to, give us some good feedback, usable feedback. And so we will be launching here very soon. Once it's live, I'm going to be blasting it everywhere. And hopefully everyone can try it out, give as much feedback as possible because
Yeah,
the more feedback as early as possible, the better, because then we can improve as fast as possible and make your life in the future and your career, your professional profile flawless for years to come.
awesome. So VeriDeal, Verideal.io
IO.
is the website.
That's
Okay,
correct.
cool.
Yep. Very deal.
I'll put that in the show notes as well.
I appreciate it.
Mate, if there was one final message for people listening to this who perhaps were in a similar situation to you, not necessarily being laid off, but just thinking about I'm not fully fulfilled in the role that I'm doing and I'm really trying to differentiate myself, but it just seems all consuming. Apart from the obvious one of jumping on a Verideal,
Right.
is there any lasting piece of guidance or advice you'd like to leave them with?
Yeah, I would love to. So, it took me a long time. Like I said, it took me 18 months to understand this. It took me until my third child to understand this. But if you take one action a day into the direction that you believe is the right way, um, you might not know where the path is going, but taking a small action every single day, consistency, 7 days a week, doesn't matter. Just go do the next thing. I think that can really change a lot of people's lives for the better. And don't be afraid. I mean, get out there, talk to people, ask dumb questions, and just learn. Like, just get out there, do the simple things. That
Love it.
I think that's what's helped me a lot is
Love
by
it.
doing something every single day.
Love it. Great advice, mate. And I love the simplicity of that. Everybody can do one thing to move in the
That's it.
direction of what they want, right? Presupposing they know what they want, right? So that's another
Right.
question altogether. But I love
Yep.
that. I love that, mate. Firstly, thank you for coming on the podcast. I really enjoyed this
Thank you.
conversation. Thank you for coming up with an idea that when I looked at it, I'm thinking it's a really foundational idea, but I can see how this is gonna make such a difference in the world of sales. So I wish you every best, best of luck and best wishes for the launch, but also global domination, and I really mean that.
Thank
And
you.
also, uh, congratulations to you and your wife on your anniversary for tomorrow. So I know
Thank you
you're going
very
to have to
much.
get some sleep. You're going on a date night tomorrow night, but be a good man and look after your wife and enjoy the time together. So thanks very much for being
Thank
on
you.
the podcast, my friend.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to the Exceptional Sales Leader podcast. I trust the information in this episode has been helpful in your journey towards becoming exceptional. And remember, please take the time to rate the show, subscribe to the show so other people can find it. But also, if I can help you, jump on my calendar, go to leadwithdarren.com and let's have a conversation about how I can help you along your journey to being exceptional.